Joe Biden's feed was mysteriously cut when he was ready to answer questions earlier today, just kind of going and showing once again that Joe Biden is actually propped up like Weekend at Bernie's. This is one long, drawn-out Weekend at Bernie's that we're witnessing here as Joe Biden has not held a press conference in 43 days. Remember, they were all saying that they were going to be so different than Donald Trump, that they were going to be doing the right thing by the American people and having transparency. And yet Joe Biden has not held an actual press conference in 43 days. Every single photo op, we have seen him standing next to Kamala Harris. She seems to be looming absolutely everywhere. Kamala Harris is now taking foreign policy calls without Joe Biden, with top foreign leaders around the world. And then today, during a virtual event feed, Joe Biden at the end of giving his scripted address says, "I'm happy to take questions," and suddenly the White House cuts the feed. So if the writing couldn't be more on the wall as to what is actually happening here, but let me just go ahead and show you. This is the event. This is Joe Biden saying, "I'm ready to take questions," and then the White House cutting the feed. Check this out.
Thank you. And I'm happy to take questions if that's what I'm supposed to do, Nance, whatever you want me to do.
Boom, it's gone. So he says, "I'm happy to take questions, Nance. So whatever you want me to do, I'm happy to take questions." And then they cut the feed so that Joe Biden could not take any questions. So all we've seen really from Joe Biden is a lot of scripted speeches at this point, and everything has been very much. He's been shielded. He is everything is planned. Again, we haven't had a press conference because he's not taking questions at press conferences. And clearly, even when he's talking to lawmakers, Democratic lawmakers, so this wasn't even a hostile press conference. We're not talking about sitting in front of the press where you're going to have people from Fox News and Newsmax asking questions. He's sitting with Democratic lawmakers, and he's happy to answer questions from fellow Democrats who are surely going to softball questions, and nonetheless, they still cut the feed. So, this just kind of goes into what I've been talking about all along, which is from the very beginning that Joe Biden is just he's just the vehicle that Democrats use to usher themselves back into the White House. And the real plan was always to have Kamala Harris as president of the United States. That was originally the plan back when there was the elections going on, when there was the primaries going on. Kamala Harris was the one who was crowned and anointed. She was the one that they wanted to be the nominee. But of course, Tulsi Gabbard took her out during the debate, and Kamala Harris fell by the wayside and did not even make it to the first primary in the country. So Kamala Harris, the reason why she was the one who was anointed really is because she's easily controllable. I mean, Kamala Harris stands for nothing. She doesn't have a single policy that she actually believes in. As much as Fox News wants to try to make it sound like Kamala Harris is some left-wing radical socialist, that is not true. You know, Fox News just definitely goes along and fearmongers along those narratives all the time, saying that everybody's some crazy far-left socialist. Kamala Harris doesn't actually have any policy ideas of her own at all. That was one of my big problems with her when she was running for president. She would say something, and then she would backpedal and say something else within hours, oftentimes. Sometimes days, sometimes weeks, she would change her stance. And sometimes it was within hours she would backpedal and change her stance. And really what it came down to was Kamala Harris was in the position she was in running for president because Democrats saw an opportunity with a woman of color who would be easily manipulated and told what to do, and she would just giggle her way through the presidency and, "Okay, if that's what you want me to do, I'll do it. You want me to bomb everybody in the Middle East? Fine. You want to go to war with Iran? Let's do it." So Kamala Harris was given all of Hillary Clinton's resources. And remember, Maya Harris, Kamala's sister, is the one who was helping run Hillary Clinton's campaign, obviously ran Kamala Harris's campaign. And Kamala Harris was given Hillary Clinton's entire Rolodex, including her foreign policy advisory team. So Kamala Harris was obviously the anointed one when I was watching the primaries. And then Kamala Harris was taken out. And suddenly the Democrats were left scrambling. They didn't know what to do. This is why we saw Hillary Clinton going after Tulsi Gabbard, calling her a Russian asset, calling a person who is a serving member of the U.S. military who has done 2 tours in the Middle East, calling her a Russian asset. If that's not a disgrace, I don't know what is. And ends up, going after Tulsi Gabbard, Then the Democratic establishment scrambled. They then gave all of those resources to Pete Buttigieg, saying, okay, well, here's another guy that we can maybe hopefully prop up a bit. Let's see what we can do with him. He, of course, had a lot of issues and was not going to be able to win the South vote. But he was able to distract from Bernie Sanders' campaign, which was ultimately what they were trying to do, was to derail Bernie Sanders. They used Pete Buttigieg to derail Bernie Sanders. And lo and behold, out of nowhere, Joe Biden suddenly, after not being able to win any of the early primaries, suddenly he becomes the nominee for the Democratic Party. Everybody folds and they all start circling their wagons around Joe Biden and saying he's the guy. Then it became obvious that Kamala Harris, who was the original anointed one with all of Hillary Clinton's resources, would be the one who would be named vice president under Joe Biden. That wasn't even a real question. And so here she is, vice president. The reason being because the Democrats' plan all along has been to have Joe Biden serve about 2.5, 3 years, and then have Kamala Harris step in and her then take over the rest of his presidency. If she only takes over the last year or two of his presidency, she can then serve an additional 2 terms on her own. She could be president of the United States for 10 years. And that has been the plan for the Democrats. Now, the monkey wrench in the whole thing is Donald Trump. And he's always been, the one that's kind of the spoiler. And so they were hoping that Donald Trump would be ousted from the presidency, that Joe Biden would be in, and that they could somehow disgrace Donald Trump so badly that he would not be able to win another election, another primary, that the Republicans would turn on him. And we're seeing this right now going on in the media, right? We're seeing all across liberal media, suddenly they're saying Republicans have lost their way. The Republican Party that used to be grand is now the party of Trump. And how shameful is it for the Republican Party? As if these liberal media outlets ever liked the Republican Party to begin with. They're acting like they once thought the Republican Party was full of virtue and goodness. And it was once a great party that maybe they just had some ideological differences with. And now it's this shameful, evil, terrible party filled with Nazis and racism. They never believed that the Republican Party was virtuous and good, but just different. They never believed that. They have been saying that they are the devil's party for the longest time. And the Republicans do that to Democrats. So suddenly this charade of the Republican Party has lost its way is falling on some deaf ears here because they've never felt that way. And it's just a bunch of bull. What they're trying to do is they're trying to discredit Donald Trump because they're afraid he's going to run again in 2024. Now, that is the monkey wrench in the whole entire plan. What they want to do is Joe Biden, they think they can prop him up weekend at Bernie style, like what they're doing right now, kind of shield him from the press, keep him away from people so that we don't catch on to the fact that he's having a cognitive decline, unfortunately, but obviously. And also, Joe Biden has always been a little bit of a loose cannon. I mean, back when he was vice president under Barack Obama, he was a bit of a loose cannon under him. That's kind of why we liked him as vice president. He was funny. He would say things. It was off the cuff. It wasn't exactly politically. He didn't have that posh, polished politician way about him, right? Joe Biden was a bit gruff, and we kind of liked that. That's what made him interesting as a vice president. What doesn't make him interesting as a president is the fact that he does have obviously some cognitive decline going on. So they're hoping to weekend at Bernie's prop him up for as long as they can until Kamala Harris could take over while still maintaining her 2 terms, her eligibility for 2 of her own full terms. That gives the Democratic Party power for 12 years, not just 8, but Kamala Harris, president, propped up with Hillary Clinton's people for a solid 10 years. That is their dream come true. But if Donald Trump, if there's a hint, and this is why they wanted to impeach him, they wanted to convict him, and why there was so much chatter about making him ineligible to ever run again for office, this is why they wanted to go down that road, and those hopes were dashed. Just kind of goes to show in some good ways that they don't have that much power. As much power as they think they have, they don't seem to have that much power because they definitely attempted to disqualify Donald Trump from ever running again for office, and they were unable to do that. So the monkey wrench is if Donald Trump runs in 2024, then they have no choice but to continue propping up Joe Biden puppet style like they are, shielding him from the real, from questions and people, even softball questions from Democrats, shielding him from that so that we don't see the cognitive decline, their only option is to continue propping him up for 4 years and getting him to run again for office in 2024 against Donald Trump. Because if Kamala Harris has to take over, which is what they want, but not if Donald Trump's going to run, if Kamala Harris has to take over before 2024, Donald Trump is very likely to defeat Kamala Harris in the actual election, in the general election in 2024. It would be very difficult for Kamala Harris to go up against Donald Trump. The reason being because Kamala Harris giggles all the time and she stands for nothing. She has no real conviction and she giggles and she's just a puppet of Hillary Clinton. And that is so obvious to the vast majority of us that are watching her that she's not a leader at all. She doesn't have leadership qualities. She just doesn't carry that about her. Hillary Clinton had more leadership qualities about her than Kamala Harris. I mean, you might hate Hillary Clinton, but you have to give her that. She at least does seem more of a leader and a commander than giggling Kamala Harris, who just says, oh, what did you want me to say? Oh, did I say the wrong thing? Okay, I'll go back and say something else tomorrow. Oh, no, we won't even wait till tomorrow. I'll just go and say something else here in the next couple of hours. I mean, Kamala Harris stands for nothing. So if Kamala Harris has to run against Donald Trump in 2024, all bets are off. Donald Trump might actually win again. So Democrats are scrambling. And today, them cutting off the virtual feed right when Joe Biden says, I'll take questions. Is that what I'm supposed to do? I mean, he didn't even know if he was supposed to take questions. He's saying, is that what I'm supposed to do? Am I supposed to take questions? I'll take questions. Is that what I'm supposed to do? Okay. And he sits there and then they cut the feed because they're like, we don't want him to take any questions. We want him to go his merry way, and we're not going to hold a press conference until we can somehow figure out what those questions are going to be, or wait for a time when the questions are easy and Joe Biden isn't going to fumble his way through it. Not really sure what they're waiting for, but clearly they're very afraid of him talking on his own off the cuff without a teleprompter. We're going to see more and more signs of this, and I'm going to continue saying this for the longest time. I'm sure you're going to get sick of it, but Kamala Harris is slated to take over for Joe Biden. Now, many Democrats, I get these emails all the time. They say, oh, no, Kim, isn't there going to be a primary? What makes you think it's going to be Kamala Harris who's going to be the nominee? We're going to have a primary, like as if we live in a democracy, especially within the Democratic Party, saying, no, we're going to have somebody more progressive than Kamala Harris. We're going to get somebody really good in there. Guys, stop. You're dreaming. It's not going to happen. Kamala Harris is the nominee. Kamala Harris is the one who's been selected. There will not be a primary, and that is what the Democratic Party is going to try to avoid at all costs. They don't want a primary again. They don't want somebody like a Bernie Sanders or an Elizabeth Warren or a Tulsi Gabbard coming in there, or even an Andrew Yang coming in there and spoiling their hopes and dreams of continuing to have their establishment grip on the party. They're not going to have that happen again. So Joe Biden is either going to be the nominee or Joe Biden's going to have to step aside. Kamala Harris will be the sitting president at that point, acting sitting president. And yes, she will have the nomination. There will be no primary. There'll be maybe a fake primary, where but they're never going to have a debate. They're not going to advertise it. And none of the media is going to talk about any of the other candidates running against Kamala Harris. So you can forget it. It's not going to happen. Any candidate you were hoping that would one day be president or would one day be nominee of the Democratic Party, you could forget it. You could at best hope for vice president, but that's already been decided with Pete Buttigieg. So it's going to be Harris Buttigieg. That's who we're looking at, unless Buttigieg really screws something up. Which is possible, and they go with somebody else, or they'll wait for the social tides to change and they'll see what's in 4 years. What's the identity token that they need to throw in there in order to make the ticket look like it's inclusive and well-rounded and, representative or whatever they think. So we'll see what happens in 4 years. But as of today, if they were to create their ticket, I'm telling you, it's Harris Buttigieg. So we'll see how far Joe Biden can make it, how long he can last in these 4 years. But today is just another one of those signs that things are not necessarily looking so good for Joe Biden in the White House at this point.